Alright, guys, we are back, or I am back, I guess, with a review of an Absolute Edition that is still in publication. And one of the things I'm going to try and do with this review is keep it shorter because some of my reviews are going kind of long, and I noticed from some of my YouTube analytics that you guys aren't really, as a whole, watching more than like 2 to 5 minutes. So I'm going to try and keep this short. This is the Absolute Edition of Crisis on Infinite Earths, the DC Comics Maxi series that reset the DC universe back in 1985. And so it has the slipcase. I'm showing you here some cool artwork. The artwork on the slipcase is all done by Alex Ross. So very cool stuff there. And this is one of the earliest Absolute editions that DC released. I think this was released in 2005 or so. So I'm just going to put the slipcase over here. And this actually comes with 2 volumes in here. The first one is the big one here on the right, and it is the entire 12-issue maxi series. And so you've got the slipcover here, or this, and then the actual cover on both of these basically looks like this. It's just black with Crisis on Infinite Earths embossed on it. Same on the spine, nothing on the back. So I'm not going to bother showing you that. And the same here with the compendium, black cover. Underneath this, basically just a black cover, says Crisis on Infinite Earths. The compendium, same on the spine, nothing on the back. So, we're going to start with the actual maxi series here. One of the cool things, again, I'm going to talk about with Absolute Editions is the size of this. It starts off with a little foreword written by Marv Wolfman. And then just jumps right into the story. It doesn't start with any of the issues that preceded Crisis on Infinite Earths, introducing the Monitor. It just jumps into it and does the 12-issue series. And so it's pretty straightforward. One of the cool things about this, if you follow DC Comics, it's especially for as long as I have, this is sort of my jumping on point with DC Comics. I started reading in the 80s, so this is where I began. So I have a lot of fond memories about this series, a lot of fond memories about the era that came out from this maxi series, including the big controversy, or the big story with Krona. Here, talking about looking back and how he gazed back into the beginning of the universe of DC Universe and created the multiverse because of it. So I really love this side of DC Comics, and I love how they use this whole series to integrate everything into one world. And then where I really started reading was after that, when everything was condensed and you just had New Earth, or Earth 1, Earth Prime, whatever you're going to call it. And I read that from the late 80s all the way through the 90s into 2000s. Through the small reboots and everything that they did, and all the other all the other crises that they did. So I love this, and just going back and looking at this kind of makes me a little bit nostalgic and kind of sad about New 52 and where that went wrong. And I'm glad to see DC making some corrections with Rebirth. So I'm pretty excited. So it's awesome seeing this. The pages here are like a thick matte page, so it's not glossy. The artwork really stands out very well. And then if you followed some of the other stuff, all the other future crises, this is the impetus of Infinite Crisis with Kal-El, Superman, older Superman, and Lois Lane, and Superboy Prime, and Alexander Luthor. So this is actually where they came from. If you remember from I think it was like 2005, 2007, somewhere in there, Infinite Crisis. Anyways, so that the end of this book ties directly into that, which is pretty impressive. And yeah, so I mean, you see Alexander Luthor taking them away, and eventually, like I said, you'll see them come back. You see Wally West putting on the Flash uniform for the first time, and then his Flash series is one of the first series I started collecting, so I love seeing that. Yeah, and then it just has a little afterword, 2 pages of sketches, or not even really sketches, just character design studies, and then just a bio of everybody that was involved. So pretty straightforward, just the 12 issues. And like I said, the artwork's fantastic, the story's amazing, and the enlarged size for the Absolute Edition is amazing. The compendium is actually the really cool thing, I think. Well, aside from the story, if you like extra features and you like all of this is, I think, the gold standard when it comes to the Absolute Editions and extra features, and I wish all of them had this level of information and extra features. So you start here on the back. It's actually an enlarged version of a note that was written. It says, Jeanette, Biggie, can we kill Supergirl in Crisis? I must know soon. And it's almost like a kid's note passed in grade school, right? So you've got yes with a box, no with a box. Only if we have a new Supergirl soon with a box, and none of the above with a box. And it looks like originally there was checked off here, none of the above, and then it was scratched out, and then it was decided that yes, we could. So kind of cool to see that. And then as you open it up, you got your table of contents. What's really cool about this is they talk about where Crisis began. And what's really amazing to me is that the idea for Crisis on Infinite Earths and why they needed to do it in the planning process started in like 81, 82 with the actual series kicking off in 85. And so that's amazing to me, considering things like Convergence, how haphazardly they were thrown together, and how well this one stands up. I think it just shows in that planning process. So they talk here about some notes back and forth between DC execs and editors and what needs to be included. They go through every single issue, and really what's going to be in them. Anyways, so they go through all of that. They even show for each issue here. Let me pop in here. They even show for each issue here the cover, who the featured characters were, who the guest stars were, just all kinds of stuff, who the villains were. Just kind of cool stuff. And then back in the back further here, I'm sorry, this is running a little long already. It's going to be tough trying to knock these reviews down. These are all the Crisis crossover issues. So they have a list of all of those. Starts here. And again, same kind of thing. They have a little synopsis of what went on, what the story was, who the artists and writers were. So some cool things there. And then what else do they got? Trying to find it. They also had, here we go, every single character, hero, villain, supporting character that was in Crisis, and including the issue that they were in. And then they also have a D next to their name if they died in that issue or not. So if you're interested in seeing which character, if a character that you love is in Crisis, you can find out where they were. It's just kind of cool. Or if you're reading Crisis on Infinite Earths and you're like, holy crap, that's a huge panel of so many heroes. Who's that guy? You can come back over here and check out who all these people are. They talk about some of the events that went on post-Crisis, including the stories and how everything was going to be consolidated down into one world. They then elaborate. They then elaborate and go into how Crisis didn't fix everything, and they had to go into 0 hour, and then they reintroduced multiple Earths or infinite Earths via hyper time, and then of course that changed again. Hyper time was something that they kind of came up with, and I think only lasted like two, maybe three. I don't even think it was 3 full years before they kind of changed it again. And then this one here talks about the Legion in Crisis, and so basically, Superboy helped found the Legion back before Crisis on Infinite Earths. But when John Byrne redid Superman with Man of Steel miniseries or whatever, the idea was that Superman was never Superboy. He was just Clark Kent, and then he became Superman, and there was no such thing as Superboy. And so it kind of created this vacuum with the Legion of superheroes and all those pre-Crisis stories and how the Legion was founded and all of that. And so they kind of talk about that little problem right there, and then how it had to be corrected again in 0 hour. And then, Crisis 20 years later. I thought there was also... Sorry, I think I skipped over one other thing. And that was... They have a listing of every single Earth. And I apologize, this is running a little bit longer. Here it is. Yep, I definitely skipped over it. So what they have here in the middle is a list of every single, at the time, well, not even at the time, because this has additional Earths, or, variants of Earths, of DC's Earths that came about after Crisis on Infinite Earths. So you'll see stuff like Earth S, which is where the Shazam family was, and Earth 2, and Earth Prime, and Earth 1. But then they also include stuff like Earth 97, which is where the Tangent series of comics came from. You'll see stuff like where the Elseworlds Earths are, and they have them all numbered and labeled. They have Earth 901, which is just imagine Stan Lee creating the DC Universe Earth. So they have a listing of all those Earths, not only pre-Crisis, but after the Crisis as well, that then popped up into existence that are now maybe or maybe not relevant now that we have the multiverse again in DC Comics. So it'll be interesting to see how some of these things kind of play in, maybe if you're interested in that kind of thing. Anyways, Crisis on Infinite Earths, Absolute Edition, well worth the buy. In my opinion, it's still on sale. As a collector, that makes me sad because I eventually want to buy stuff and have them go out of print so that, these books are worth something. But it's good for people who haven't bought it yet that you can actually go out and still purchase this Absolute Edition, which I would recommend doing, especially, with them doing Rebirth. It's hard to say what they might tie in with Crisis on Infinite Earths, with Rebirth, with, they brought Wally West back, all of this different stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that and if it'll tie in somewhere into this as well. But that's my review and kind of my overview of this book. I'm going to go in order. So we got Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then the next one, I believe, is Identity Crisis. Then I'll follow it up with Final Crisis. No, it's not Final. Sorry, then Infinite Crisis, and then Final Crisis, which are all in the Absolute format now, which is pretty awesome to see on the shelf, all of them next to each other. So very, very cool. The only thing that DC could ever do better is if they ever do an omnibus that includes issues that lead up to Crisis, and then some of the issues and ramifications right after Crisis on Infinite Earths. I would love to have an omnibus like that. But until then, this is the next best alternative. Unless, of course, you just want to get a trade paperback of Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I think is available. So, awesome comic, awesome story, awesome artwork. And in my opinion, one of the top-notch versions of the Absolute Edition, because it comes with these 2 volumes with a ton of extra features here. So well worth the money. One of the absolutes that's absolutely worth the money. So take care, guys. I'll see you next time with a review, probably of Identity Crisis. All right. Take care.